Welcome to Group 1's India Country Analysis by Patrick Rogers, Ezekiel Sims, and myself, Raven Worley. Here is the outline for the country analysis on India. Ezekiel is going to lead us off with the country's background, and then we'll into business practices. She'll hand you off to myself. We'll talk about the economic situation. Then I'll give you to Patrick, where he'll discuss the country's competitiveness and the healthcare. He'll give you back to myself, and then we'll talk about some recommendations and wrap it up with a conclusion.
India's background. India is located at the southern part of Asia, bordering the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal between Burma and Pakistan. Their date of independence is August 15, 1947. The capital of India is New Delhi, and their current president is Ram Nath Kovind. He's held this position since July 25, 2017. Their political ideology is Sovereign Socialist Democratic Republic. The country's total population is 1,296,834,042. Urban versus rural population, 34% being urban and 70% being rural. The life expectancy total is 69.1 years, 67.8 being male years, and 70.5 being female years. Their per capita population is 156. India business practices. With there being more than 23 languages in India, Hindi is the official language. The overall literacy rate is 64.8%. The male literacy rate is 75.3%, and the female literacy rate is 53.7%, showing a 21.6% difference between the sexes at the national level. The country time zone is India's Standard Time Zone, which puts them 8 hours and 30 minutes ahead of Washington, D.C. Working days per week, they can work up to a maximum of 6 days a week and work 8 to 9 hours per day, no more than 48 to 50 hours a week. Industries: agriculture 15.4%, industry 23%, and services at 61.5%. Their unemployment rate currently sits at 8.5%. Their exchange rate, $1 is to 69.1905 Indian rupees. 1 Indian rupee is $0.0144529.
India's economic situation. As one of the fastest growing economies in the world, India is expected to climb to and maintain one of the top 3 spots as an economic world power over the next 15 years. India has over 4,750 technology startups and maintains its position as the world's 3rd largest startup base. Additionally, with the growth in population, labor force, and increased higher education enrollments, the expectation by 2020 is for the labor force to reach roughly 170 million. As of mid-March of 2019, the foreign exchange reserve had reached $405.64 billion US dollars, and there have been many recent developments. As of February of 2019, India's merchandise exports increased 8.85%, and the services exports increased to 8.54%. While the consumer price index inflation froze at 2.57%. Several government initiatives are underway for the 2019-2020 union budget. Total expenditure for the 2019 and 2020 is budgeted at US $391.53 billion, an increase of 13.3% from 2018 and 19. Another initiative is the recently government approved national policy on software products in 2019, which aims at transforming India into a software hub. By fiscal year 2027, the country expects for the GDP to grow to a US of 6 trillion. India is also turning their vision to renewable sources to generate energy, as the country plans by 2030 is to be utilizing 40% of its energy from renewable sources, and by 2022 the country is planning to take its renewable energy capacity to 175 gigawatts. Additionally, with many economic policies going into effect, it is expected that the Indian government turn their attention to implementing policy faster, with a major focus on the development of infrastructure. Furthermore, India's GDP is expected to see a 7.3% growth throughout 2019 and 2020. India's current minimum wage rate is revised as of 2017. The national floor level minimum wage is 176 INR per day, which equates to $2 and basically 2.54390 US dollars a day. However, other sources list India's wages at 272 INR a day, which is roughly 3.93149 US dollars per day. Low scale wages as 10,900 INR a month, or 157.548 US dollars a month, and the high scale wages ranges are 43,200 INRs a month, or which equates to 642.412 US dollars per month. In other recent news, February of 2019, there was a proposal to double the national level minimum wages to 9,750 INRs a month, which would make that up to 140.926 US dollars from its current 4,576 INRs, or 66.1415 US dollars. India's unemployment rate is 3.5%, and the inflation rate is 3.6%. The official exchange rate GDP of India as of 2017 was 2.602 trillion, while the real growth rate GDP was 6.7%, and the per capita GDP was 7,200. India's GDP purchasing power parity was 9.474 trillion and ranked the country number 3 in the world. The country's GDP composition by sector consists of agricultural at 15.4%, industry at 23%, and services at 61.5%. India's agricultural products consist of rice, wheat, oilseed, cotton, jute, tea, sugarcane, lentils, onions, potatoes, dairy products, sheep, goats, poultry, and fish. While India's industrial products consist of textiles, chemicals, food processing, steel, transportation equipment, cement, mining, petroleum, machinery, software, and pharmaceuticals. India also saw 5.5% growth in industrial production in 2017. India's natural resources consist of the fourth largest reserve of coal in the world, antimony, iron ore, manganese, mica, bauxite, rare earth elements, titanium ore, chromite, natural gas, diamonds, petroleum, limestone, and arable land. As of 2017, India imported 452.2 billion in commodities, included such items as crude oil, precious stones, machinery, chemicals, fertilizer, plastics, iron, and steel, while the exports totaled 304.1 billion and included commodities such as petroleum products, precious stones, vehicles, machinery, iron and steel, chemicals, pharmaceutical products, cereals, and apparel. India's major import partners include China at 16.3%, the United States at 5.5%, United Arab Emirates at 5.2%, and Saudi Arabia at 4.8%, and Switzerland at 4.7%. While India's major export partners include the United States at 15.6%, United Arab Emirates at 10.2%, Hong Kong at 4.9%, and China at 4.3%. Now, I'll hand you off to Patrick to talk about the competitiveness.
Thank you, Raven. This is Patrick, and I'm going to talk to you about competitiveness. India's property rights ranks 57.3, which is 31st among 43 countries in the Asia-Pacific region, and its overall score is below regional and world averages. Property integrity ranks at 47.8, and judicial effectiveness is at 61.6. Poor infrastructure, corruption, restrictive regulations, and poor financial management continue to handicap progress within the country. India's education system consists of primary ages 6 to 14, secondary ages 14 to 18, vocational and tertiary schools. Primary and middle and upper primary education is compulsory and free in India. These are both state-run and private schools offering primary education. Students in primary education start with the regional language. Secondary education is broken down into two levels, the lower level, which finishes at grade 10 with examinations to enter grade 11, and the secondary level, which covers grades 11 and 12 and completes with examinations to enter university level studies. Young people who do not wish to go on to tertiary school or who fail to complete secondary school often enroll in privately owned vocational schools that specialize in just one or only a few fields. India's higher education system follows the British system, and it has multiple levels. Students begin with undergraduate courses to complete a bachelor's degree. Following this, there are graduate level courses, which leads to various types of diplomas. India's infrastructure consists of railways, pipelines, roadways, airports, maritime transport, and communications networks. India's railway system covers 68,525 kilometers or 42,579 miles. It's currently ranked 5th in the world for total route length of its railway networks. India has 35,656 kilometers or 22,156 miles of pipelines. India has 14,500 kilometers or 9,010 miles of waterways, which consists of rivers, canals, and they also have 7,516 or 4,670 miles of coastline. India has several major seaports, the largest of which is Jawaharlal Nehru Port, which is located in the Mumbai harbor, and it handles 4,517,587 20-foot equivalent containers annually. India has 253 airports, of which 160 have paved runways and 93 are unpaved. India has the fastest growing aviation market on the planet, according to the International Air Transport Association, which is an industry trade group. The influx of aviation is due to deregulation of the aviation industry and the rise in number of budget carriers within the country. India has over 1.16 billion cellular phone subscribers with 91 per 100 inhabitants, and it has multiple cell phone providers and is ranked second internationally. The country has 375 million internet users, accounting for 29.5% of the country's population, and is ranked second in the world in internet usage. Doordarshan is the country's largest broadcast media provider and holds a monopoly on broadcasting within the country. The company operates multiple national and regional channels, as well as a large number of privately owned stations. India has 4,699,024 kilometers of roadways. This is 2,919,838 miles. 96,000 kilometers or 59,000 miles of those are national highways, with 147,000 or 91,839 miles being state highways, and the remainder are just other roads. India's global ranking is second for the expanse of its road network. Alright, I'll now cover healthcare. Healthcare in India is universal. However, the quality of care can vary significantly across the country. Lack of adequate coverage by healthcare systems in India means that many Indians turn to private healthcare providers, although this option is generally inaccessible to the poor. Private hospitals attract medical tourists seeking medical treatment at a much lower cost than Western countries. India spends approximately 5.54% of its GDP on healthcare, and it has 0.7 hospital beds per 1,000 people and 0.76 physicians per 1,000 people. India has a very high risk of degree for infectious diseases, including bacterial diarrhea, hepatitis, typhoid, dengue fever, Japanese encephalitis, malaria, and rabies. It ranks fourth in the world in deaths caused by HIV, with over 2.1 million of its population living with the virus. The major causes of medical-related deaths in the country are cardiovascular disease, diarrheal diseases, neonatal disorders, non-communicable diseases, and chronic respiratory issues. I'll now be followed by Raven for recommendations.
Now for some recommendations from the group. There are many areas where India needs to work towards improvements, to include business practices, economy, competitiveness, healthcare, and transnational issues. While India has a pretty standard work hour and work day per week with overtime laws, they need to work on improving the minimum wages and standardizing it across all of India, such as like a federal law, and not leaving it up to the states. India is also failing as citizens. They need to get a handle on the literacy rates and get those improved, and not just the overall, but to include women as well. While this could be contributed to the widespread Muslim religion, it cannot be solely related to religion as the reason the country is holding back its female citizens. Bottom line, the country needs to eradicate its discrimination against women and girls. Economy recommendations. Seeing as India has a vision of becoming a software hub, they need to start working towards working relations with software giants such as Google and other subsidiaries. This can lead India towards the direction they need to build their infrastructure. Something they could also explore is working towards enticing a company to build an artificial intelligence lab in the country. As India is rich with natural resources, they need to try to work towards boosting their exports overtake the imports. Additionally, they need to work towards obtaining trade agreements, partnerships, enticing investors into the country. as well as have a short-term goal of renewable energy, but they also should try to get ahead of the long-term goal they have established for the renewable energy vision. India has many areas where they must improve in competitiveness to reach their desired goals. They must improve their economic freedom to include property and intellectual rights and government integrity. They must work towards eradicating crime and corruption, as well as minimizing the restrictions on regulations for investors to enter into the country. India needs to work towards improving all levels of their education to include public and private entities, and work to increase the education of all country citizens, both male and female. The country needs to improve its infrastructure, such as its electrical grid, phones, buildings, water, sewage, etc. With artificial intelligence lab, the country could use this as ways to assist with the means to find health cures and even solve problems with the flooding issues. India must improve their health care as well. The country is working in conjunction with the CDC to get a handle on the AIDS epidemic and is carrying out the plan of action. There are other areas in healthcare where improvements require attention as well. Many on the waterborne diseases can be reduced with educating the populace, as well as improvements to the infrastructure. The vector-borne diseases the country can get a handle on with education, such as prevention, and as well as immunizations. As for the medical-related deaths, cardiovascular diseases, neonatal diseases, non-communicable diseases, the chronic respiratory issues, diabetes, mental disorders, unintentional injuries, neoplasms, and nutritional deficiencies. Education on prevention would help. However, the country needs more medical facilities with better doctors, care, and equipment to assist with treatment for these medical conditions. Some of the transnational issues that are in India. India is a foreign base for 9 terrorist groups which maintains a presence throughout the country. These range from recruitment presences in cities, coordinating attacks against troops and civilians, maintaining safe havens, developing transit routes, and human trafficking. India continues to be in the middle of the tri-battle between China, India, and Pakistan. Additionally, illicit opium is produced for the world's largest pharmaceutical trade, but much of this opium becomes illicit and enters the international drug market and spreads throughout neighboring countries as well as Southwest Asia, ultimately increasing the vulnerability to money laundering. In conclusion, today we discussed the country's background, business practices, the economic situation, some competitivenesses, healthcare, and we also offered some recommendations. The next 3 slides are just our references. This concludes our presentation on the country analysis for India. I hope that you enjoyed